We're going to call the meeting to order at 6:04. We have a quorum. We're only missing Kate and Laura. We have Dwight. And people stop moving. Dwight, Chad, and Mark. So welcome to the meeting, everybody. First item of business is additions or deletions to the agenda. Mark, Chad, or Dwight, do you have anything?
To the agenda, no, but the link in the Wyndham Central calendar entry for today was wrong, because I was waiting there for 5 minutes to be let in. So other people may be in the wrong meeting also. Okay.
Remember, to err is human. To really mess up requires computers. So, is that?
I don't know. Humans were messing up for a long time before there were computers.
Okay. You got Kate coming in the waiting room. So, if nobody else has any additions or deletions, I'm going to make a couple changes. Under new business, the article of agreement review, I'm going to put that off because the superintendent can't be here tonight, and I'd like to have him around for that discussion. And after we do members of the public and members of the staff, I'm going to ask if we can go into an executive session so we can get Lori out, and then Lori has another meeting to go to, so we're not holding her up from her other meeting, and we don't keep her out all night. So unless anybody's got a problem with that, I don't see anybody. Now, where did Mark go? Oh, Mark's there. He's not a Maple Leaf anymore. Okay, so members of the public, do we still have the phone number?
I don't see the phone number.
Number's gone. Okay, members of the public, I got Tom and Dana and Alan. Do you guys have anything?
I just popped in, so I'm gonna have to get up to speed and listen to you guys.
Okay, well, we just kind of started too, so you're at the perfect time. Tom or Dana?
Nope, nothing to add now, thank you.
Thank you, Dana. Tom Oakley? Maybe he doesn't have enough bandwidth.
I'm sorry, Rich, no, nothing to add, thank you.
Okay, thank you, guys. So I'm going to jump over to consent agenda. So we have the minutes of the November 1st, 2021 meeting, and I've been giving, I don't believe, any correspondence. There's nothing right there.
No letters.
So just the November 1st, 2021 minutes. Go ahead, Mark.
A couple of corrections. On page 2, under waiting study, the second paragraph, I thanked you, Rich, not Laura, for speaking. And page 3, under financials, I mentioned that I was abstaining because of the late send of the financials, not just that there was a lot of material.
Sorry, can you give me those again? I'll make the corrections.
So under the waiting study report, Mark thanked, it wasn't Laura Sevilla, it was Rich Werner. And the other one was Scott. Is he in there, Scott? Scott, didn't you thank Scott too, Mark? Or was it just me?
No, just you.
Okay.
Oh, no, you're right, I did. I think Scott as well.
Yeah, help me real quick. Scott's last name is?
Salway.
Salway. One of the selectmen, Peter? And
Not Salway.
yep, and then under financials on page 3, Mr. Schauber noted that he got the materials too late to review them and would abstain.
You have to give me something I can search.
It's
Page 3 under finance.
Peter, don't go changing in the
Okay.
minutes, just note it in the minutes.
Large amount of material and would abstain.
Correct. The lateness of the date, you got it late, too late to review it before we voted.
Okay, too late to review. And we'll abstain. Now, forgive me, the waiting study, it starts right out, Ms. Sibilia reported. Is that,
The second paragraph, where it says, "I thanked Ms. Sibilia," I actually thanked Rich and Scott, not Laura.
oh, okay. Got it, thank you, sorry.
No problem. Are there any other notes from anybody, corrections? I see Kate shaking her head no, Dwight saying no. I can't see Chad.
Nope.
Oh, hey Laura, how are you? She joined us, so we've got a full board too, thank you. Members of the staff, I see we do, I thought we had, I saw Tricia Clark there. Tricia, do you have anything for staff?
I do not, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm just trying to check with everybody because I've been missing people. So we, under additions or deletions to the agenda, I asked if we could move into an executive session. We have two items to do with Lori, and they're both personnel issues. So I was going to get Lori on because she's got to be at the West River meeting also. So if I could get a motion to move into executive session for personnel.
So moved.
Second,
No second.
okay, so Mark moved and Dwight seconded the motion to move into executive session for personnel at 9:12. We'll be, we should be back out pretty quick, so if, we're gonna stick you in the meeting room. What was that, Peter?
It's 6:11.
6:11.
Not 9.
Okay. 6:11. I can't see a time on the computer. So, all those in favor say aye.
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 It appears as though it's a unanimous decision. It is an unanimous decision. Matt's gonna practice kicking people into the waiting room. We'll be right back. Okay, so by unanimous consent at 6:30, we came out of executive session. Mark, you got a motion?
I move that we increase the hourly rate for the food service manager to $24.95 retroactive to July 1st.
Is there a second to that motion? Okay, Mark made a motion, Chad seconded to increase, Peter, the food manager from, to $24.95 per hour retroactive to July 1st. Are you good with that, Peter?
It doesn't hurt my feelings.
Okay. So, we're all set to vote. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 It appears as though it's a unanimous decision in the affirmative. It is. So, you can let the food manager know that we appreciate him and we're glad that he's with us.
Thank you.
Mark?
I move that we authorize the administration to offer full-time nursing position for $56,420 for a 185-day contract, prorated to the start date.
Okay, do we have a second to that? Chad's eating.
I'll second.
Thank you, Kate. Chad was eating, in case you didn't notice. He didn't bring us any, though. So we have a motion and a second, Peter, to increase, to authorize the administration to hire a nurse at the annual rate of $56,420 for a 185-day contract, prorated to the day that they actually start. You have disabled the waiting room.
Let him flow. We're in session.
Got it, thank you.
Thank you. Is there any discussion, or are you guys all ready to vote? Okay, if you're all ready to vote, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 It appears as though it's a unanimous decision in the affirmative. It is a unanimous decision, so you guys can go get a contract ready for us, and we'll take it at that first meeting in December.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, new business. Mark, how about if we, Mark and Kate, I know you put a lot of time in this RFP. Can we run through the old business first, and then we'll come back to that, and we'll finish the night out on that? That may make it easier. Nobody objects? School update during COVID. Nat, Tammy, anything?
Well, we have vaccine clinics running starting Wednesday at Leland and Gray, sponsored by Rescue Inc. So that information has gone out to families.
The
Any other
only
updates?
other thing is there was some information sent home to families about the Test to Stay program, which does require consent from the family in order for the child to participate in that.
Are there any questions for Matt or Tammy?
I wasn't able to hear that last bit about family
The
commission.
family for the Test to Stay?
Yeah, so information was sent home to families also regarding the Test to Stay program, which requires consent from the family in order for the child to participate.
Thank you.
Okay. If we're all good with that, I don't know, Mark or Laura, do you got any updates on the waiting study? Go ahead, Laura.
With their preliminary first round of projections, incorporating a number of different weights, not incorporating, keeping ELL as categorical aid. I don't know that that will stand. It's not, I have a good understanding of what they have done. I've asked for the background information from Brad, and I think we'll see what happens.
Thank you, Laura. Mark?
Yeah, so the task force is taking two parallel paths right now. The one that Laura just described, and then one that they are calling cost equity formula, which I am referring to as inflation-esque with categorical aid on top of it. Basically, they would take the data from the study, and instead of using weights, they're going to use dollar figures to assign to different categories, and take the pupil weighting formula completely out of the equation. This is a proposal that has legs, unfortunately, and at this point, unless there's some major change, we are expecting a dual path in the report. That's what we got from the chair.
The chair may say that it has legs, but that is a Scott Beck proposal, which has been floating around for some time, and highly skeptical of Scott Beck's. But it would not surprise me to see it come out as a minority report.
So it's something everyone should be aware of. It's there.
So it's the same thing that we try to fix Act 60 and 68 with, so we'll see how it goes. Did everybody get a chance to see, I know Bill sent out a couple, and I know there was a couple comments, I think Chad maybe commented on it, on the community feedback on on the waiting study. Was there any questions? Any other comments from any board members? I think everybody's shaking their head no. So we have the community feedback on hypothetical scenarios, and I know a few people read it because we did get some feedback. I think Chad, you made a comment, maybe Kate, So, or you did, Mark? So is everybody good with the last version that Bill sent out? I think it was like Friday?
Was that no, the last I saw was that he was going to be bringing us a new version today. Oh, are you talking about what was included in the board package?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
But that's from 11, that's dated 11/9. But I know, because Chad, you made a comment about a potential future parent. Yeah, that's in there. That was on, I thought that was on like Friday or Thursday.
Yeah, I had brought that up with Bill as soon as he released it the first time, so he added that pretty quickly.
Okay, so is everybody good with it? Is there any comments on it? Are we good to tell Bill he let it go out?
Can we talk about how we're gonna advertise this?
Well, I think it's going out to the parents and it's gonna, sure, Mark, I guess. I thought we discussed that. How is it going out?
I don't recall what we decided.
I thought we were going to put it in with the report.
Yeah,
Into the report?
The town report is
well,
what we
the
decided.
school district report.
Right, that's what Rich, you had wanted to put that off until now.
Oh.
Make that-
Okay, I'm trying to look, Mark. I thought it was gonna get sent out to parents, staff, through the school stuff, and then we were gonna put it in the, was there something?
I had suggested that we include it with the annual report. You just didn't want to make a decision at that time.
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, because the annual report isn't done yet, but yeah, we can definitely do that. But I mean, is there something else we want to do? The annual report won't come out for another 2 months.
As long as we are getting it out to all community members, and I think that is the easiest and best way to do it because we already mail it out.
Okay, maybe what we can do too is we can just send it to the newspaper, just let them know that there is a survey too in the Bucketville News.
To parents.
Yeah, so, okay, so what we'll do is if everybody's good with it, we'll send an email out to the parents and staff members that with the link. We'll maybe put an ad in the Valley News and the Bucketville News. So people can go there, that might reach community members. And then somebody needs to remember when we go to put the annual report together, that we have a little blurb about it in the annual report and a way to get to it, or where to go and find it online. Is that good with everybody, or is there anything we're missing?
I think that covers everything.
And it's on TV. Matt, read the link.
It's on TV. Where's the link?
No, what's the link?
Oh, what are you guys, bctv.org?
No, the link to this. Where will they find this?
Oh, the survey.
Yeah, if somebody from TV Land look at the survey.
I don't believe we've published it yet.
Okay,
We haven't decided
well,
whether-
Mark, we'll make sure at the next meeting we discuss it so it's on TV.
Okay, I was going to say I can set up the link so it will be at survey.rvusd.net.
Perfect.
Survey at our,
Survey.rvusd.net.
okay. Chad, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, when we do publish that in the newspapers, is it just going to be the written link? Do you want to throw a QR code for all the smartphone using people to take a quick snap and be able to get to that survey quicker? Is that helpful, not helpful? Too much, too little?
Chad, I'm leaving now, thank you.
We love QR codes.
Yeah, I know you guys do. Bye, Kate. Hey, no, yeah, my thought was we're not gonna publish the whole, all the questions in there, but just that there is a survey, and maybe a little blurb about it. And then, yeah, whatever we need to do to make it right, but I'm gonna let the administration deal with that, if that's okay with everybody. And then Mark, just make sure you send that thing that you set up to Bill, and Matt and Tammy, so they know where it is, so they can add it to theirs.
Will do.
Okay. Chad, if you have a minute and you want to type up like a little brief press release to send around to everybody on the board, you don't have to do it now, but sometime during the week. I think to get it in the Valley News, we have to have it to them by Monday. And, that would be the Thanksgiving edition, so there'd be a lot of people around. And then Bucketville News, Kate and Dwight and Chad, I think you have to have something to them like a week before the end of the month, right?
I think it's the 15th of the month before,
So we would have to do that pretty quick too.
by the end of this meeting.
Okay, well, Chad, get something out, we'll try to sneak it in this month.
Okay.
But if you don't have time, then just let me know and I'll try to do something. You guys all good? Guys and girls, okay. Budgeting practices. A couple of years ago, we discussed equity in education, and one of the things that has been asked of us a few times is when we put together budgets, how are we following our equity principles? And so I thought, because we're doing budgeting, next meeting, maybe if Matt and Tammy could give us the abridged Reader's Digest version of how equity is considered when they're putting the budget together. I'd just like to make a couple comments, and mostly, Chad, you're kind of new on the board. Remember that when we started River Valleys, Dover and Wardsboro together, Dover had the IB program, and Wardsboro just had a regular education program, but they were doing a lot with, there was some training you were doing with...
We had the Science for Wins program.
No, but what was that other thing you were doing with the, working with the students?
Instructional.
Yeah, you had some program you were was mentioned in there.
Was it PBIS?
DCI or something that program.
Does anybody remember the program Wardsboro had that was mentioned in the articles when we put that together? Dwight, do you remember that?
I remember the name of it, but it was a statewide thing that only a few districts in the state were doing.
The network improvement community that we did, the NIC?
Yes, Nick. Does that sound right, guys? Nick? Yeah, Dwight shaking. So anyways, when we went and we were discussing it, we felt that it would be better if both schools weren't exactly the same, because there was some discussion about Wardsboro taking on IB. And we thought that was really kind of setting us up in the future when, we get Act 58 and a half or something, that if both schools are exactly the same, the state may say, okay, well, you don't need two schools doing the exact same thing. So we felt, and there was some articles and some paper that we had read that said, if each of the schools has a different specialty, that really strengthens our case in the future to have the two buildings. So we actually looked into, when we presented the IB and some other choices, and pretty overwhelmingly, and a lot quicker than we thought, we did come up with the STEAM program for Wardsboro. Although it's not quite exactly the same as an IB because there is no certification, Tammy and her staff really pulled together on that, and it's done some really wonderful things. So remember that equity doesn't mean everything's exactly the same. And that's one of the things we don't want to have, is we didn't want to have both buildings exactly the same at that time. But again, things change, so we could consider that again and make both schools exactly alike. But I think that would be a discussion. So I'm going to turn it over to Matt and Tammy to discuss equity while we're doing budgeting.
Thanks, Rich. So we've got a few slides. We're going to keep it brief, but you'll have to excuse us for possibly nerding out on this a little bit, because I think Tammy and I both take a lot of pride in our ability and our work with Lori Garland to really come up with something that is equitable and awesome and taxpayer friendly. Those are our simple goals. I've never done this presentation during a Zoom while the screen is split, so I apologize if I break it right now, but I'm going to try it. So bear with me for just a second.
I want to say being awesome, being an added goal.
Awesome, yes. All right, let's see if I can pull this off. Let's see, that'll be all those, right? Screen one, share it. Now you have to tell me what you see. Do you see the green box?
I see nothing.
I see the green box, but also the PowerPoint, I see the whole thing.
All right, how about now?
Now I see the green box.
Now you're happy.
Wait,
Beautiful.
thumbs up.
Can someone tell me how to share my presentation notes while I'm doing this though?
I got them
Jeez.
printed up.
Oh, look
the
at Tammy.
old-fashioned way.
She's got it printed up. All right. Well, we'll just present then. The link here in our presentation notes is just a reminder that Lori Garland put together a really cool document that's kind of been guiding our work. And I'm going to just jump out for a minute so you can see it. So this document called Guiding Principles, Tammy and I revisit this each year when we work with Lori so that we can kind of keep in sight the board's objectives, our objectives, the objectives for the community to have a taxpayer-friendly, educationally sound budget. So this has really been important for us to be able to check back with, and we put the link in there.
Yep, and actually the document was also part of the board docs for tonight, so it should be within the packet. So you should have already received that.
Cool. It looks something like this with some blue text, so you can check that out on your downtime. Next slide is really just kind of talking about. We thought maybe breaking it down into these two categories. Category one of equitable educational opportunities and safe and healthy physical plants.
Right, so just originally the direction of the board was not, like Rich had mentioned, to create two equal schools, but rather to create two schools with similar high educational opportunities, right? So offering the best opportunities that we can to both communities. And as a Vermont AOE defines educational equity, that means that every student has the access to the educational resources and the rigor that they need at the moment in their education across race, gender, ethnicity, language, disability, sexual orientation, family background, and or family income. So in consideration, when we're taking the budget into consideration, Matt and I are really looking at the different opportunities that each school offers and the different programming that both schools offer.
Switch. So these are some subcategories of equitable educational opportunities. We've got our school-based focus programs, the investments in STEAM and IB. We've got foreign language. We've added foreign language to the Wardsboro program. Academic support resources are getting up to speed with special education and the academic support team. We've collaborated on shared staff, music, art, technology, nurse, food service, while remaining responsive to student needs based on what we're seeing in terms of data, student assessment data, and so on and so forth.
And I think what's really great about the shared staff is that students are receiving the same high-quality instruction at both buildings. So the same music instruction is happening at Dover as it's also happening at Wardsboro, so that they do have that consistent instruction across the district, which is really great. And then, as Matt pointed out, they're remaining responsive to student needs. Some ways that we've done that is really looking at the data and making data-based decisions via our AST team and work within the classroom and differentiation. We've increased their counseling. We've planned increases with the nursing and mental health services, as well as, I know at Dover, the instrumental music was a need last year, so there was an increase there based on the demand.
Any questions so far? All right, I can't see everybody, so if you have a question, go ahead and unmute and ask. 3, 2, 1. All right. And then this other group is the, we've already talked about this. We put a slide in, but we talked through it. This other group is about safe and healthy physical plants, and so we just thought highlighting our investments in HVAC, custodial and building maintenance, collaboration with the WCSU Director of Building and Operations, maintaining school equipment, furniture, and supplies. These are all ways that we have, as a board, as a community, as schools, made investments to keep things running and keep it so we're not spending millions of dollars in deferred maintenance over years. So I don't know if we have any other, do we have any other notes about that?
Not really, just highlighting the collaboration with the role of the WCSU Director of Building and Operations. Just adding that position has really been very beneficial to both buildings, I would have to say. We've collaborated on big project planning, safety recommendations from him, from the insurance company, for example, for the playground and adding more surfacing, which was suggested. We've also worked with him on our capital needs assessment and the implementation of that, some pooling and sharing of resources between the schools. Purchasing PPE was a big one during COVID. He helped coordinate all of that, as well as some equipment and supplies, in addition to some crisis and emergency planning, as well as the water system maintenance, which is all done in collaboration with him as well.
Some more specific examples. I think Tammy just went over all of these, and that is all we have. Does anybody have any questions?
You forgot the one thing I wanted you to talk about.
What was the one thing we missed, Rich?
School choice.
Oh, school choice.
Somebody talked about that.
Yeah, thank you for the reminder. So Rich wanted me to remind us to talk about the school choice policy that we have in place. So there is the ability for students to move between the schools, provided that they can submit the application, go through the process. Applications are due at the end of March each year so that we can plan for staffing around that change. And we also just thought it was important to put a reminder out there that we have a limit of 10% maximum move, so that we limit ourselves to allowing only 10% of a particular student body in a building to move to the other building. And if that's a little unclear, take a stab, or maybe, does that make sense?
So just, I think an important thing to remember is, and again, I think everybody but Kate and Chad were there, is that, one of the things we said, if we're not going to be exactly the same in both buildings, we wanted a way for a student to be able, if they happen to be in Dover and they really, really like engineering and the sciences, that there was an ability for them to go to Wardsboro and partake in that program. And I think there's actually been a few people that have taken advantage of that. But we also didn't want to allow so many to move. Like if everybody in Dover wanted to go play with Tammy's STEAM program, or the Wardsboro STEAM program, we couldn't fit them all. Everybody from Dover can't fit in Wardsboro. And we also didn't want everybody from Wardsboro wanting to go to Dover, because then that doesn't allow us to keep the second building open. So I just thought that's a really important part of the equity also. Go ahead, Laura.
Yeah, that is actually the most important part of the equity for me. That's what allows us to run two different styles of programs in our two buildings with our two different administrators and staff. If we didn't have that choice, that would make it a lot harder. And with the limits that we have, I think it's important for us that if we bump up against those limits, that we really evaluate why we're bumping up, and if we need to make programmatic changes in one of the other buildings, if there is, one of the other programs that is, more popular, or if it's not a program, if there's some other thing, and we look at how we can adjust equity. But for me, right now, the existence of two strong and different core curriculum programs with the ability of families to choose in some capacity, and we haven't hit the limits on it, right, guys? We have not maxed out on choice yet. No.
We are close. We are close in Dover.
We're close.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's something that we have to, I feel like that we have to evaluate on an annual basis, right? So that should be, that should be telling us, that's telling us something. So, whatever the case may be, how we, maybe additional tools, I guess the equity piece was a big question for me. I don't even know how long ago we started on this, maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago. This is, how how do we, as a combined district, ensure this, right? And it's actually the state's responsibility to ensure equity, but, you know, when we think about kids and the programs. So for me, this two strong programs with choice between works. When we start bumping up, then, you know, I think evaluation. So I'm glad where we are. I would love to hear, you know, in the future about how, you know, when we start bumping up, you know, I'd like to hear recommendations from the administrators about how we evaluate when we start bumping up. We've always been flexible and entrepreneurial here, so not that you're not being wicked entrepreneurial right now in the pandemic world, so maybe we could wait just a little bit until things settle down. So thank you very much, both of you.
So Laura, Mark, let me just comment real quick and I'll get to you, sir. One of the things is, because Mark involves you too, is we did the policy for the movement between the schools, and it was, I think it was a short policy because we wanted to be able to evaluate that again. So I think definitely, and I'm not going to ask you to speak to it tonight if you don't have the numbers, but maybe you can, for the next meeting, you can give us an idea of why we're bumping up, or not why, but you know, what the numbers look like. And Mark, I don't know when that's up for you guys again, for your policy. Go ahead.
It's one of only one or two policies that we reevaluate every year. It is up in December.
Okay, so we'll be talking about it. So that would be good for the administration to have some of those numbers for us to look at the same time.
Yeah, because we're not having a December meeting, it will be in January, but it will be at our next policy meeting.
Well, you mean policy committee isn't meeting?
Right.
Right,
Okay,
correct.
yeah.
Correct.
Okay, because I thought we had meetings in December. Go ahead, Mark.
He's off. No one
Okay.
else.
Did you have some other comment, Mark? I'm sorry, other than,
No, that's actually what I was,
okay.
I just wanted to let Laura and everybody know that we do look at it every year.
Okay, Dwight or Chad or Kate?
Yeah, I do have a quick question, Rich. I mean, I think it's great to have the choice and have our students be able to move. But I think it's equally important to evaluate the reasons that they are, and not assuming it's just programmatic. But if there is some social discrepancies that we need to address as well, you know, that we as a community are aware of that, because it's definitely, you know, together, you know, both schools together, making sure that all the children are, you know, well cared for and in a good environment, and, you know, certainly a good life lesson for the entire community if we're seeing issues in social dynamics as well as program dynamics. Yeah,
and just so you guys know too, I mean, we have had requests before for, haven't there been requests because people are closer to Dover School than they are to the Wardsboro School, or where they're, or was that?
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of different reasons, Chad, but let's definitely bring that up when we have that discussion, because I think some reasons may surprise you sometimes. Kate, you and Dwight good? Yep. Okay. Laura, you still have your hand up, or you just didn't put it down?
No, I put it back up.
Oh, sorry.
For this reason, Rich, you know, I'm not sure if I heard that we want to hear more about bumping up, like in the immediate term, and I don't know that I guess I don't feel like that is something for right at this moment when we're having like a surge in vaccinations, and that maybe we can wait till the spring to kind of look at that a little bit more, and we're not in the middle of budgets and other things, but maybe I will be supporting that. And maybe that's not what I heard.
No, just that, you know, for them, the limits are set by the policy, so they can't vary the policy. The board sets a policy, and it's supposed to be reviewed. I was thinking it was every other year. Mark told us it was every year, so I just,
yeah.
That's something, when we review it, we have to think about. So I was asking the administration to also bring us some numbers so we could have a better discussion.
Okay. Great.
Okay. Go ahead, Mark.
I just briefly, it's on our schedule for every December on purpose. It's because of budget season. So that's why it got that particular date.
Laura, your arm's getting tired. Is it still up, or are you set? Should we lose her? Laura, you good?
Good, I'm looking for.
Oh, she's looking for the... Okay, then let's move on if you guys are all good. Mark and Kate, you want to walk us through these 3 policies?
That sounds great. So we've got 2 existing policies that we did some review on. And pretty much there were no real changes. There was one tiny change to D4 where we struck the last line of a paragraph just because it wasn't something that really applied to river valleys. But the 2 policies were D3, the responsible computer network and internet use, and then D4, Title I comparability policy. So we would like to recommend that we have the board mark these as reviewed and post them.
Because that's different than in your minute, than in the agenda.
Yeah, D3 is to be marked as reviewed. D4 was a substantial change, so you want.
That's fine, improvement. Okay, so D3 mark as reviewed. And then, so I guess we should look at it separately in that regard. So D3 mark as reviewed.
Okay, so go ahead. Do you want to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion that the River Valleys Board mark policy D3, responsible computer network and internet use as reviewed.
I will second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second for policy D3, responsible computer network and internet use to be marked as reviewed. Is there any discussion?
So I think it's on the agenda, although I don't have it in front of me, that the only change were to the cross-references, the policy names and numbers.
And that there's some formatting updates.
Yeah, I'm always fixing formatting, so.
Okay, so I mean, again, if it's not anything major, so then we definitely can review it. So if everybody's, Peter, did you get the motion okay? The motion in the second?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 It appears as though it's a unanimous decision in the affirmative to approve it. It is. So policy D3 is to be marked as reviewed on this date. Go ahead, Kate.
Okay, then we have sorry, good ambient noise. Policy D4. So it was last updated by the Vermont School Board Association December 3rd, 2015. So the model change, the model policy had no change. We discussed it, and they use a district-wide salary schedule in their policy, and that's not something that River Valley uses. So we recommended warning and adopting D4 with the last sentence of that paragraph removed, pending the approval of the superintendent, and then Mark did check with Bill, and Bill was okay with removing that.
Without legal counsel.
In fact, he felt that legal counsel was not needed because the SU still uses a schedule system. So he was very comfortable with making that call on his own.
Okay. So
I would like to make the motion that we mark this policy, that we warn and adopt policy D4, Title I comparability policy.
Well, we're going to warn it first. We'll adopt it next time.
Thank you.
Okay. So the motion is to warn policy D4, Title I compatibility policy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. I'll let Mark second it. It's easier on Peter. You can cut and paste. Peter, you good with that motion and second?
Yes, sir.
Okay, is there any discussion from anybody? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 It appears as though it's a unanimous decision in the affirmative. It is a unanimous decision, so will you post that? And then, Peter, we need to make sure that we have a note there that we have to bring D4 back to adopt at the next meeting.
Got it.
Thank you. And then you guys had a brand new policy, yay!
You want to take Kate?
I'll let you roll with this one.
This was a new policy from the VSBA, released in October of this year. And its main purpose is to satisfy the requirements of the IDEA legislation, which requires that a policy like this be in place prior to January 15th, I believe, of 2022. There is a manual that the Vermont AOE is producing. I have not received notice that it's out yet, but that would be more of a procedural aspect that would go along with this.
So would you like to make a motion, Mark?
Yep, I will move that we warn D7 special education.
Okay.
I will second that motion.
Kate moved, Mark seconded. Any discussion from the board? Peter, you all set, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I have one quick question, Mark. And maybe Matt and Tammy know it, and it's not a big deal, but I know we don't have a special ed budget anymore. We have an MTSS budget. Is like special ed becoming a bad word, like grandfathering?
I
Or,
don't think so.
okay.
It's just becoming combined with other services, academic support, special ed.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely not a bad word.
You guys all ready to vote? If you are, all those in favor of warning policy D7 special education signify so by saying aye.
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 Okay, it appears as though it's unanimous to the ayes and the or affirmative. It is, so we have two, Peter, that have to get posted. So we'll have two we'll vote on to adopt at the next meeting. And then if anybody has any questions between now and then, bring them up. So you guys are doing such a wonderful job, Mark and Kate. Why don't you, the only thing I have left besides our meeting on December 6th is the RFP review. So everybody did their homework. And Matt and Tammy rated you all, and I just want you to know I'm the only one that got an A+++. The rest of you were close, but not that. So anyways, Mark and Kate, go ahead and let us know what you guys, you came up with 3, and if you want to kind of give us the overview.
Yeah, Rich, I hate to tell you, you only got an A-.
Oh,
Sorry.
Hey Mark, my mom would be so proud of me if I knew if I got an A- in school.
You didn't use the form that you requested, so that's why you get deducted a little bit.
I tried, I couldn't figure it out, dude.
No comment. So we had 22 proposals that we received. Through the scoring mechanism, we narrowed that down to 7 that Kate and I did a relative deep dive on. Some we a little bit deeper than others. And from that, we came up with 3 recommended bidders that we believe that any of them would do a very good job and we'd be very happy with. They kind of fit different categories. Bidder number 14, Edgeworks, is a local business, local being Waterbury, Vermont. So that kind of, from a personal perspective, I think hiring a Vermont business is good for business. 13 is a relatively large company, but they appear to have very personal attention and some really great websites that they've already done for public schools. And then, am I giving the numbers right, Kate?
Yep, and so that was number 13, and the final one is number 6.
Take it?
Sure, and that one, that is a more national company again. They've got websites for school all across the country and things like that. Since it is a bigger one, we do have a higher level of support and things like that. And they've got a really good basis in education. So we, like, as Mark was saying, we had some very excellent candidates across the board, and it was tricky to narrow it down to 7, and then even harder to get it down to 3, but we've got 3 really good options. Did everybody get a chance to kind of review the different choices and just kind of check those out?
I want to thank everyone for going through and doing your homework. It really, without it, we would not have been able to get to this point as quickly as we were. So thank you very much. Much appreciated.
So Mark and Kate, did everybody get a chance to review them? And if you didn't, there's no hurt, no foul. But if nobody reviewed them, then it's really hard to have a conversation about it tonight. Or is everybody read them enough that they feel comfortable to be able to have a conversation? Dwight, Chad are shaking their heads. Laura, are you good to move on?
Good.
Okay, I know Kate and Mark are because they recommended them. So how do you, Mark or Kate, I'm not putting you on the spot too much, but out of the 3, did you have a number 1 recommendation?
We didn't come up with a joint recommendation. We do honestly believe that any of these 3 would more than satisfy all of our requirements and do a very good job. I have a personal recommendation. I'm not sure if Kate does or not, and I'd be happy to share mine and my reasons for it.
Okay, Kate, do you have one that you'd like to recommend too or not?
It's one of those things that was really hard to choose between the 3. They all had really strong considerations, but yeah, I can come up with one.
Okay, so Laura, Chad, and Dwight, do you want to hear their recommendations, or would you like to? Go ahead, Dwight.
Yeah, first of all, I want to say what a fantastic job, and to get this many bidders is outstanding. I guess they seem like they've got 3 down that are really close together, and I'm wondering if some other, my question is, isn't this a good time to have you done any review in terms of the references or contact any, any people that are using the site, or is your decision strictly based on the proposal that was given?
At this point, it was based on the proposal. We had planned on doing the references before the meeting, but quite honestly, time just got away from us.
Yeah, that's fine. I think that, I'm wondering rather, if I don't want to delay this anymore, so we have some great choices, but, it's always good to get a reference for this type of work, especially the ones that have similar type websites, like the one guys in Vermont who have some school websites, and get a reference from their teachers and their administrators to see how it's working.
Dwight, so there's 1 or 2 ways we can do that. I kind of was thinking what we would do is not approve one tonight, but say this is our number 1 candidate, and then assign maybe like a couple people to help out, like one person maybe, go on the website, see how easy it is to use, one person to contact the people they worked with, and another person maybe to see if we can get like the parent-teacher group to tell us what they thought of it. Because again, I think if you go to all 3 of them, it's going to be really difficult, because you're going to get just overwhelmed with information. So, but again, that's up to you guys. Chad and Laura, I'd love to just have you weigh in before.
Rich, one of the things that I noticed that came up in the scoring sheet that Mark and Kate found as well was a discussion of the content management system. And again, not being as tech savvy and understanding, WordPress versus what appears to be Ively and Edwards have created their own system. we're really looking for something that's going to be very user-friendly for our admins and administrative staff to be able to make these changes without utilizing the web hosting companies themselves. So how important is that in what we're looking for, the CMS?
It's very important. There is no question that, I should have printed it out, 13 is the only one that, of the ones we are recommending, it's the only one that is portable, that uses WordPress, meaning we can take it from any height, any host that we want. We're not stuck to them. The other two, we are stuck with those companies and their hosting systems. All of them are going to have the front-end capabilities that we want to have for our staff. So I don't think any of them are going to be any harder or easier to use than any of the others. Those are part of our requirements were ease of use.
So to follow up on that, it seemed like the MRW, which is the WordPress utilization company, their annual hosting, is that kind of typical? And it seemed higher than what I was seeing, unless I misread, from Beehively and Networks. And is that a concern going forward?
Well, Beehively is 9,600, I believe, if I remember correctly.
Do you have the chart in front of you, or do you need?
Matt, what is it?
Yep, 9,600.
I'm pretty sure it's 9,600 because I reviewed that one.
Yeah.
Matt has a chart, so.
Let me tell you what, Rich, how about if we go column by column?
Mark, let's just do this. Let's just answer let's see what Laura has for concerns, because if we decide we want to do something different, go, different direction, actually check out more stuff or check out how user-friendly it is. I think that would just be easier. I think a review by column, if everybody did their homework, they've already done that.
So at the MRW, I believe that's number 13, we are not required to use their host. Any of these, most of these businesses have pretty high hosting costs, and that's just a way for them to have continuing income, continuing revenue. Beehively, the one advantage to Beehively and their relatively high annual cost is that they do a complete revamp.
Every 2 years.
Every 2 years. It basically means changing the way it looks, but not the content of it. That neither of the other two provide that service. Edgeworks, the Vermont company, is $300 and some odd a year for just hosting. And they, as part of all three of these, part of their hosting services, maintain security, updating their plugins and the CMS applications themselves. But with Edgeworks, you don't get anything beyond that. Where with the other two, you can have the ability to actually call up somebody. And with Beehively, you can call them up and say, we want to make this change, and they'll make that change for you. Even as minute as a blog, they'll do that for you. Not saying we want that, but they will do that. Does that help, Chad?
I think he shook his head yes.
Sorry, it does. It didn't unmute when I was looking at the spreadsheet that Mark and Kate put together.
Laura, do you have any comments, questions?
No, I really appreciate the work, and I have, well, let's see if I have any concerns. I have, let me just see, what I want to see is if I can say I will be happy with any one of them. So I'm just reviewing, which I have already done, to see if there's anything that was a little crazy. I probably could be good with any of them. I do think that one of them was kind of head and shoulders above
for me, so.
Okay, so Mark and Kate, go ahead, Mark, I'm sorry.
I want to ask Laura a question. Unless you want to give the name, I guess without giving the name, can you say what it was about one of them that put them head and shoulders above? I'm just curious.
Not a single, I would say not a single thing. There's several things that, and I'm happy to say which one it is if you'd like.
Rich?
It's up to you guys. Again, we're gonna have Mark and Kate tell us what they thought. It's up to you guys. I'm not exactly sure how you want to move forward. My hope was that we could narrow it to the one that we really think may be the best and ask for some people to move forward with that one. We could start with Laura's recommendation and go from there.
That's what I would do.
Okay.
Well, and I'm happy to sit back and hear Mark and Kate's also, but if it, whatever.
You will.
And I can't, somebody's going to have to tell me what they would like.
Go ahead, Laura. Tell us who you picked.
So I really appreciated and took it to be a really indicative, having done a couple of websites myself, of a good potential for a good relationship. The mock-ups that we received from Beehively, I appreciate that they are an existing, that this is what they do, that they schedule a redesign every 2 years. That's kind of unheard of. Both of those, those two things, I shouldn't say it's unheard of. It's not something that I have seen before as a regular thing. So with that and the two mock-ups, I was pretty pleased. The proprietary software, I think, is probably the weakest point for me, but because it is an entity that has a lot of experience with a number of different educational institutions, and because at the end of the day, we are not going to have a big, a computer programmer, consistently on our staff. It bothers me less. I think it's probably more appropriate for a smaller school. So that's my choice, Beehively. I could go with either of the other two.
Yeah, stick with that, Laura. Let's see what everybody else thinks. Kate or Mark, one of you guys.
Actually, if you don't mind, I prefer Kate and I go last.
Okay, Dwight?
Put me on the spot. I don't have as much experience, I'll be honest, in website design, and certainly was relying on the experts here. But just my initial reaction, I really I liked the Vermont-based company, Edgeworks. I thought they, just only because they have experience with Vermont schools, that really was just for me, and it seemed like the cost was pretty reasonable as well. So they were the ones that kind of stood out to me. But again, I'm not someone who has a strong, and I could be swayed in another direction from the experts. But that kind of jumped out at me as something that seemed like a good company to work with.
Thank you, Dwight. Chad?
I had similar thoughts to Laura, as a matter of fact, and just playing with the mock-ups and seeing some of the other websites. The tabs on top, the easy navigation, because we have three distinct entities wrapped into one, really I felt would give our entire community the opportunity to easily navigate between all three schools, the two schools and the district office, to make sure that we're providing as much content as possible. The additional cost up front was not as grandiose as MRW. Recognizing their support, but offering that 24/7, and also the redesign to encourage them to stay current, and saying that as much as the websites represent us, it's also a representation of the work that they do. So they want to make sure they are in front of the technique, the artistry, and the information that goes out to our constituents. And I thought that was a great presentation.
Thank you. Kate or Mark, who wants to go next?
Go ahead.
Sure.
Go ahead, Kate.
So even from the initials, because I did a read through of all of the presentations just to kind of get a feel for them. And Beehively stuck out from the very beginning for me, like that was one, like the mock-ups, you know, like that like, has already been mentioned, and just being able to see how the three would interact together and how we could present it as like one SD first, and then show each entity and be able to navigate easily between the different entities, and it's one cohesive place, and you can tell exactly which site you're on and all of that fun stuff. But I thought they did a really nice job with that. It was an easy to read proposal. It was good. So yeah, I really liked Beehively.
Mark?
So Beehively was actually my number 3. My number 1 is MRW, number 13. To me, their existing websites just were a step above the others. I really liked their general navigation. I thought that they have a number of different generic themes that they mod for the individual districts. That said, that number 13, MRW, would be my first choice. But I think that any of them are going to be very good for us.
So I went through your guys' spreadsheet. I didn't actually go to the other 2 because I had, right from the beginning, and I struggled with this a lot, and I did call Mark to ask him a couple questions. But this Beehively just stood out so much, heads and shoulders above, but I had a lot of trouble with the numbers because I wasn't sure how to play with the numbers, but everything that Laura, Kate, and Chad said stuck out to me, including they have been around for a while. They're not the oldest company that we're dealing with, but I believe they had like over 10 years of experience. They have a lot of experience with education, where a lot of the other ones were kind of anything that came along they would work with. I like the annual training where they say that every year they'll do training for the staff because we're going to have new staff coming in. And Mark, I'm not exactly sure, and again, this is where I fail in technology. The redesign every 2 years meant a lot to me because, and I know you said it didn't include content. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but it just, I think even if you just rearrange it, when people go on there, they're like, oh wow, this is new. Even though maybe, it's sort of like the car dealers, they throw something on a car that they've had for years, but now they highlight it or they put a light around it or something. And he's like, oh wow, this is wonderful. If you turn the knob a little bit, the wipers don't keep going back and forth. They take a break in between. So that was my choice too, was Beehively. So go ahead, Mark.
So the way to think about their redesign is, if you took a look at Beehively's website, they had maybe 12 sample sites that they've done. If you took any 2 of them, they could switch the look to the other one, but the information about the school, the basic content behind what you saw would remain the same. So it's changing. Perfect example. When I shave my beard, I look a little different. That's basically what they're going to be doing. It's going to look different, but it's going to be the same thing, which is a good thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just trying to give you an idea of what it actually is.
So where I go from here, folks, is I've got 4 for Beehively, one for each of the other ones. I would give a little more weight to Mark and Kate's votes just because they spent a lot more time with this than I did and the rest of us did. But even doing that, I think Beehively is the one that we all seem to be pretty happy with. So my suggestion would be is that we ask, and I don't want to keep burning Mark and Kate, so if there's a couple other people that would like to jump on board, I'd really like to do some background information on them, like go and see if we can get references, actually call references. I've always found it's better not to just use a reference they give us, but when you call that reference, ask them, do they know another person or another company or another school that used them? Because I would hope that they wouldn't give us a reference of somebody that's not happy with them. And then maybe, contact, a school that's used it, an administrator, a parent group, and just see if they are all that it appears that they are, or are they not. Is that agreeable with everybody?
The one thing I want to make note of, many of their schools that they've done websites for are part of a Catholic school conglomerate. So you can get a lot of the same information from them. There is a somewhat local, I forget where it is, somewhat local school that they are, public school that they are currently working on a website for. So they didn't have samples up for. They would be a good company to, or a good district to contact. But a lot of their stuff has been private schools, which is going to be, somewhat of a different path than we're going to need them to go on. So I just think we need to make sure that we focus on contacting public schools.
Okay, so before we get there, Mark, is everybody in agreement that we should concentrate on Beehively for right now and check into them, or is there something else that you would all like to do? Dwight, because you unmuted, I'm gonna pick on you first.
I have a quick question. So for Beehively, the yearly fee after that is $9,600, and is that comparable to the other two, or I'm just kind of want to know what the ongoing expense is going to be? Do we have an idea of what that would be comparable to the other?
For these three, Beehively is $9,600. MRW is either nothing if we decided to move the site someplace else, or they charge $6,000 a year. And then Edgeworks is $365, I think, a year for hosting. And then any labor that they do is at very friendly rates, but at hourly rates, $90 and $75 an hour respective.
Dwight, do you have the spreadsheet?
I do.
Okay, because a lot of that's on the spreadsheet for you too.
Well, it doesn't have the cost on the spreadsheet, or at least I'm not looking at the wrong one.
It does.
It does, and I'm looking at the wrong one. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
So hey guys, I gotta take off. So my thought is that you're pretty overwhelmingly 4 to 1 to 1 on Beehively. My recommendation would be that you move forward, you pick a couple people to do that. Kate, I'm gonna take off, so you're gonna have to take over, okay?
Okay.
Thank you, folks. We'll see you all on the 6th.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
Rich, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Chad, you've got your hand up. Did you have something to?
Yeah, thanks, Kate. Just to Dwight's question about cost, the one thing that I, doing the same thing, Dwight, was looking at MRW's initial cost of in the 20s, and then adding their $6,000 annual, that's putting the $34,000 in the first 2 years, basically. Whereas MRW is going to be below that, Beehively will be below that. So like the cost comparison is really about a 2.5 to 3 year spread before Beehively appears to become more expensive. But even though, as Mark said, it's, the redesign is not quite as maybe it's like changing the Astros jerseys again, Chicago White Sox that go through these redesigns every other year, and similar content. But at the same time, with each of the content management software programs or systems, we would be managing a lot of the content as well. And I think to be able to have the back end really handle even some of the, like, hey, and I think for Tammy and Matt and their staff, like, hey, we're really busy at this time of year, but we need this to get up. Let's send it off to the host, and they will take care of that. I think that's a big load off their plate and, better use of resource at the time.
Okay, any other comments?
Okay, just to be fair with MRW, we could host for $150 a year someplace. That's one of the big advantages to me of MRW is that it is portable, and we're not tied into a very specific company without designing an entire new website. Excuse me. Kate, Matt has his hand up.
Hey Matt, go for it.
Thanks, guys. Actual hand, not virtual. I have just a clarifying question. Maybe you can help me. On the spreadsheet, it said there's a row for annual support cost, and then there's a separate row for hosting. I just wondered if you could clarify that, for example, Edgeworks, the hosting is $360, and the other two, it's included in there, $6,000 and $9,600. I just wondered how much of the support cost figure for Beehively and MRW is hosting, or if it's not, a lot of it isn't, hosting is small, what are we getting for that other support?
Hosting is a very small portion. They have their own data centers, their own servers. For them, you're talking about, pennies, literally, for a year, in actual, and what it's going to cost them to host it. So what you're paying for is the possibility of their support. With Beehively, it's all inclusive. You can call them anytime and say, I need this posted, I need this changed, and they'll do it, I believe, within 24 hours. They do the complete revamp every 2 years. So it's a matter of deciding, where one puts value. Is that $9,600 a year worth that revamp every 2 years and the 24/7 support, or in MRW's case is the extra or the additional $8,000 or $10,000 upfront worth the portability, and in Edgeworks case, what's the value in having a Vermont business, that we're working with and keeping the money within the state. Which is why I said, Kate and I, we truly believe that any of these three are going to be good. They just all have different pros and cons.
Thank you.
But it sounds like, with the initial reactions that everybody had, unless somebody's had a strong change of feelings, like we've had 4 for one for the other, and 1 for the final one. So instead of debating the merits of all of them, because all of them are very good, and we could debate this for quite a while, we need to just come up with a path forward in terms of moving this forward. So does anybody have experience with calling references? Would they like to take that on in the next week? Go ahead, Dwight.
It would have been great if you and Mark had come to a consensus. That would have made our lives a lot easier, but life's never easy, right? So I think I'd like to, rather than narrowing down to 1, I'd like to see maybe us narrowing it down to 2 that you guys recommended, and then do the background check, if you will, the reference check, and see if we can get any more information, and really, I guess, maybe just narrow it down to 2. Like for my kids, I used to like to tell them, they have two shirts to choose from, and that's it, So if maybe we can get it down to 2, and then at the next meeting we can make a decision. Would that make sense to everyone?
Can we get help with calling references?
Yeah, I'd be happy to help.
So does anybody have any opposition to doing reference checks on 2 of them? That way we have kind of like Dwight said, even hands and a clear path forward. So calling references for 2.
Kate?
Yes. Go ahead, Laura.
That's good for my hand. I don't have opposition to that, but it does seem clear to me that all things being equal, the board has a preference for one over the other. So if the references were to come back, So the only reason I would think that we would look at 2 is just because of references. So if the references were to come back equal, the board, I think it's already demonstrated a preference. Okay. So yes, support references. I'm not going to be able to check references, and thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or concerns? And it sounds like Dwight and Mark, are you both okay with taking references and checking in one for each of these?
I'm fine doing it. I do agree with Laura that I think the board has spoken pretty evenly. And I'm not sure that unless there are problems with references from Behigley that we need to look at another one, or, yeah, I don't have a problem doing it, as long as we've got some help doing it, because it's a lot.
Yeah, and Mark knows that this is when my work takes on a really fun busy season, and I'm sure Dwight does as well at this time of year. So what if we, I'm gonna suggest a path forward, and then I'm gonna give the board a chat. But what if we call the reference for Behigley, and if the references are not panning out in a positive fashion, we move on to the next one on the list and get references for them and report that back before the next meeting. And so that's something on the floor to just consider. Chad, what did you wanna add?
I was just gonna volunteer, just re-looking at one of the recommendations from Behigley is, one that Ryan personally liked doing, was the Young Women's Leadership School in the Bronx. I happen to be there in that area on Thursday, and I'm being willing to do an in-person if it's possible, given code protocols in schools. But happy to help out with the deep dive into the reference check and finding out how others have it, what their personal experience was in selecting this particular company. And sorry, your cat just stole the show, Kate. But get their feedback and their experience for what it is that we're looking to do as well.
Okay.
Kate, how about if we divide the references up between the 4 of us, Bronx being in Chad's literal backyard, given the photo right now, and if any of them start coming back negatively, then we move on.
Okay, Lori, was your hand up from the previous thing, or did you have something else?
Well, it was something else, and now if we're gonna have 4 different reference checks, do we want to have standard questions that we're asking at the different references? As opposed to, 4 different people asking 4 different questions, 4 different schools, and then trying to compare those apples. And my previous was going to be, I wonder about moving to approve this pending reference checks and authorizing a subset of the board to work with the administration to move that forward. But maybe we're not ready to make the decision.
Okay, so Mark, do you have any thoughts on doing a standardized set of questions or something like that in terms of reference checks, or any feedback on that?
I don't think it's a bad idea. I don't have the bandwidth to put that together, though, I'll be honest. If somebody already has it, I could put something together quickly if we were doing interviews for a CEO position, but beyond that, I'm not sure I've got anything in my back pocket. Laura, I keep agreeing with you. It is problematic having having 4 different people asking very different questions. That is problematic. That said, I don't think we're ready to move forward, Laura, because I think we're going to need a, I don't know if it has to be an executive session or not, but I think there's going to be a certain amount of negotiating that has to be done also. So I think when we get to the point of starting to go down contractual, I think that's a deeper discussion than just deciding on who to go with.
Okay, so let's work this on the first problem first. Does anybody have the bandwidth to put together a uniform system of comparison for the references?
And I just jotted down a couple notes. I think for all of us to quickly discuss with regard to that. Perhaps asking about their budget constraints, kind of what they're looking for, and how that was met. Their particular ease of use, company's adherence to their timeline from design to launch, and then lastly, professionalism of the company. What their thoughts were, how easy they were to work with. They've been able to uphold everything that they promised to do in their proposal up to this point.
Already gave a thumbs up to that one. Okay. Any other feedback or interaction?
Value. Whether they feel the value, the dollar figure value that they spent is worth what they got out of it.
Okay. So if we compile, what's being discussed here, does that give us enough of a path forward so that we can conduct 4 uniform reference checks across the different board members?
I believe so.
Okay. It is. Great. So to recap, value. Did anybody write those down?
Yes, I did. I did. I took some notes. What I think I'll do is just jot a quick email out to the entire board with value budget principles, the ease of use, ease of making changes, adherence to timeline, and professionalism of the company that we can go forth, because that's really what we want to get the gist of, and then come back at our next.
They're in the minutes. A lot of
and they're in the
stuff is
minutes.
missed, but they're in the minutes.
Okay, so Chad, they're in the minutes, and then Chad will also recap via email. Does that sound like a good plan? Is everybody in agreement that we are good to move forward with the reference checks on Beehive based on those criteria?
Yeah, I think it's good. And maybe add one that Richard mentioned earlier is to ask if they can recommend another, maybe each person try to do a follow-up to the one that they ask as well, if we can get another one like that as well.
That's a good idea. Okay.
Sorry, I didn't.
And then
What I was saying was, Richard, it's that when you do the reference check, to ask them if they can recommend another person to talk to.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
referral. A reference referral. Okay. So we've got a path forward. So Dwight, Mark, and Chad are all going to tackle a reference and go for it. Is there anything else that we need to determine to move forward on this? And then do we have a timeline?
Are you going to do any reference checks or not?
I can do one this week. Yeah, I can.
So when Chad sends out his email with the questions, I'll respond back to that with assignments from the proposal, from the Beehive proposal for each of us to do. Yeah, it's holiday time, I mean, already, you're not necessarily gonna be able to get a hold of people that easily, so, I'd say if we can, try to have it done for a week from today. That way, if we see that there are some problems, we can move on to, bidder number 2. Does that work?
Okay, so I'll work to aim to have it done by Monday, the 22nd of November. Laura, you have your hand up?
It's very challenging being on the phone. Sorry, Kate.
No worries. All right, so that was from a prior engagement.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so we have a path forward. We're moving with that. Do we need to make a motion to cover that? Does anybody know the proper protocol?
So, for the minutes, Kate, it might be good. We're just going out. Peter's got that captured in a minute. That we're acting on this for Beehive Lake. I think that's probably good.
Okay. That sounds good. Oh, go ahead, Peter.
I'm just gonna need the names of companies if you want them in here. No idea who these people are. Okay.
I'll forward it to you, Peter.
Terrific, thanks.
Thank you both. So moving on the agenda, did I hear that correctly, that the article of agreement review, that we were going to table that discussion for this week until Bill was able to participate? Was it Bill? Okay. All right, and we've gone through the policies, we've done executive session. Is there any other business?
Just thank you again for all of the work going through and putting those in. I think it's going to be really good for our district.
It would be nice to, after what, we've been working on this for 3 years now?
Yeah.
And Mark, I really like the form that you did create. It was super helpful to be able to get it all and have it you put together nicely. Okay. So hearing no other business, I'm looking for a motion. Does anybody have a motion?
Make a motion to adjourn for the evening.
Okay, so Chad has made a motion to adjourn at 7:53 p.m. All in favor?
Aye.
Seconded by Laura. Go ahead. Thank you. And that was seconded by Laura. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.